You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. Andrew and Don are back here once more, and we have another lovely special guest with us this week. We're here this week to talk about the lovely world of Star Wars publishing, the books and the comics, because we got a lot of big reveals within the last few weeks, and we just wanted to take some time to talk about them because we've been exploring the outside aspects, the outside-the-box stuff of Star Wars lately. We've talked about collecting. We've talked about video games. Now let's give the books some love. And with us, you might know him from his TikToks. You might know him from Youtini.com. Jacob Boushh is here with us. How are you today?
Pretty good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about all the things New York City Comic Con. You know, normally some of these publishing reveal panels are, I'm going to be honest, a little bit of sleepers. But they gave us quite a bit to talk about this past week or so. So it's going to be a good time.
They'll like save the big stuff for like Celebration. Usually will have a big publishing reveal and then some of the Comic Cons. But I was shocked just how much they talked about and revealed here, because I think we expected a few things, but we got a bunch of new reveals, especially on the comics side. Some game-changing announcements of what the slate is going to be like coming soon, and some new titles we can look forward to. Jacob, first of all, as I said before the episode started, it's nice to have you here in an environment that isn't us in a sudden death trivia contest.
Yes, yeah.
Every time I see Mo and Buck from now on, I'm just going to be like, you did this.
We didn't win, but we made history for having the closest match in the history of in a Galaxy trivia contest.
Yes, we did. It was the closest match, and it was a great one. And I'm not going to blame Buck and Mo. I'm going to blame Eli.
That's fair.
I'm also going to blame Don because he helped write the questions. But, so
guilty as charged.
Yeah,
in some respects.
One thing I like to do with first-time guests before we get into the thing is normally I will ask them their first memories of Star Wars, how they got into Star Wars. But to kind of twist it with the theme of this episode, and also because we don't want to talk about the movies right now, I'm going to ask you, what was the first thing that really got you into books and Star Wars comics? Like, do you have a first memory of that? What was the first book that like really hooked you, and what was the story there?
Yeah, so I was very much a public library kid growing up. Like, it was all at least once a week my parents would take me to the library and just drop me off and let me run around for 45 minutes. So my first memory of Star Wars books probably started there. I know the Jedi Quest and Jedi Apprentice books were very popular. However, my brain would not let me read them because my library never had a complete set, and I was like, if I'm going to start, I need to read all of them, and I can't.
I feel that so much.
7 or 8 missing when I get to that in a couple months. So I actually read the Last of the Jedi series, which is another Scholastic series, and Galaxy of Fear as a kid. Those were kind of my starting points. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And then I remember I still have my copy of it in the other room, but my first adult Star Wars novel was Outbound Flight. And that was, I don't know, around when it came out.
I saw that at a thrift store the other month,
which was bizarre because I had read Outbound Flight, but I did not read Heir to the Empire until and that was 10 plus 15 plus years ago. I've not read Heir to the Empire until this year. So a very odd way to approach Thrawn from a Legends perspective, but that is kind of my introduction to Star Wars literature, if you will.
I remember reading. I was actually just thinking about
there's
Last
no
Jedi
wrong way to approach Thrawn.
That's true.
I was thinking about those books the other day, and Jedi Quest is another one where I read maybe 2 or 3 when I was a kid. I have no memory of them except for when Siri Tachi showed up in Padawan last year, and it just unlocked a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. I remember I had like a book that was like a 2-in-1 that featured Suritachi. It's like the one where she and Obi-Wan have to like look after a kid, and that's the first time their feelings get explored. And that was like, it was like a 2-in-1 bundle book, and it was like coupled with this like sort of generational thing of like going from Yoda to Dooku, Dooku to Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan to Anakin, like exploring all of those different Padawan dynamics, all linked by their interactions with the same character, which was they were both really cool books, and they kind of, along with like the Legends novel Jedi Trial, that really kind of opened me up to Star Wars publishing for sure.
Yeah, I just remember I very similar to Jacob, I have a lot of vivid memories of going to a public library, and we had a specific kids section, and there was a whole section of Star Wars books, and they had the visual dictionaries. I think they had a couple like episode 1 like pop-up books. So it was like that era.
Nice.
I have really fond memories of, even though I didn't read too many of them. I will like I it's a goal to like find some of them eventually and get a whole bunch of them back. In terms of the new canon though, have you like been keeping up since the beginning, or is that like a more recent thing where you decided to go all in?
Yeah, I probably started. I think it was after I graduated college was when I kind of started, and that was 2018. So I was like a really big reader in high school, and then like pretty much did not read a single book the entire time I was in college. And then kind of was looking for a way to get back into reading. So I started reading Star Wars books then, and I was kind of like casually doing it, and then really started picking it back up. 2019 into 2020 is when I kind of really kicked into full gear, and then that's also when I started with the comics. I had not read like almost any. I picked up like the first trade paperback of the first Star Wars series, and that was about it. But like that was when I joined Youtini, or it was 2021. I don't know. It's all kind of like a blur at this point. But they were like, we're gonna start covering comics more. So I'm like, I can do that. So I read like basically every Marvel canon comic in like a summer.
Wow.
So Marvel
Nice.
Unlimited is pretty crazy when you have that access right there. So but no, that was kind of my new canon, or my journey that way.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm excited to hear more about that and finally give a lot of these books that we maybe haven't been able to talk about on the show yet, just because some of us haven't been able to read them yet, because there's so many Star Wars books out there at this point. Famously, the reason why we haven't covered much High Republic yet is because Don and I are both a phase behind.
Indeed.
But
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
like the High Republic library itself is just huge anyway. Like, and then you add in all of the other like supplementary novels and comics on top of that. It's insane.
I don't know. I've been going through bad attention span issues the last couple months, so like I'm still trying to get through Battle Scars. Like that's still my project. It's been that since May, and I'm just like, all right, I'll read a chapter, and then I'll be like, all right, that's it for the night, and then like 3 weeks will go by, and I'll be like, all right, another chapter, here we go, and then just keeps going. Exactly. And I'm like, I'm really enjoying the book, but I just can't. I'll be like, I'm gonna read. It's just like that. But another thing we like to do, or we have been doing the last couple of weeks, is we have a new segment that we like to call the Jedi Archives.
Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
This is essentially our podcast Hall of Fame segment, where every week we nominate a Star Wars related thing. It can be literally anything we want it to be, and we leave it up to you guys to decide. So we'll put up a Twitter poll, and you guys can vote. We've had 2 so far. Last week, our nominees were Connor nominated Keeve Trennis, Don nominated Belle Zedifer, I nominated the pod racing level from the Lego game, and Jared, our guest, the Dark Jedi, nominated Star Wars in Soul Calibur 4, which was Yoda, Vader, being playable characters. And the winner of the vote is Soul Calibur 4. So join Savvy's choice of Jedi Master Jorah Malley is Soul Calibur 4, Yoda, Darth Vader, and Will Merrick in The Jedi Archives. So, Jacob, I'm going to let you, because I didn't run this by you before. Do you want to just take a bit? We'll go first so you can think of something. Right. If you can think of something. Don, what do you got? Because mine's out there, and I know you briefly brought it up. So, give it a whirl.
I'm going to nominate, for this week's edition of the Jedi Archives, the song Spiceman from this year's video game Jedi Survivor. Because it's one of my favorite things about, because like Jedi Survivor is packed full of amazing things. Like, you know, we haven't even talked about that game on this podcast yet, because there's like so much stuff in there, and we haven't even 100%ed. But like, it's one of my favorite things that like on in the Pyloon Saloon, you get all these characters to fill the place up with, and then the fact that you get like a DJ droid that plays different songs is just one of the coolest little things that they didn't have to do, but they did it anyway. And there's all different songs, everyone's gonna have their preferences, but I just love Spiceman. It's just got such a cool kind of like club vibe, and I love the electronica kind of feel of it, and it almost kind of starts with like whale noises, which I just assume that might be like Purgle stuff, which is just, it's a cool song. It's a bop, I'll say that.
So this week, you know, I thought I had two good choices the last two episodes, and I lost. So this week I'm going for the kill. Now you might be saying, Andrew, just nominate Valance. I'm like, no, I can't. I haven't read Bounty Hunters yet, so I can't be cheap.
Damn, I should have nominated him.
However, I have been going through a very, very strong nostalgic feeling for how I felt and growing up during the prequel era again. Not just watching the movies, but just like re-immersing myself in just the environment back then. And I'm not talking about the toxic forums back then. I'm talking about like actually growing up as a kid, experiencing these movies. So I'm going to take you back to around 2006. And one of the great things about not only Star Wars, but Star Wars merch is the tie-ins. And around 2006, they did a Saga Collection tie-in with Burger King. So I'm going with the watches that they did for that tie-in. Don, I don't know if you know this because you're not from the States, but literally they had these watches. I still have some of them. I pulled it out. So they have these for like each movie. So this is like the Revenge of the Sith one. So like here's the Anakin one. And then here's the Vader one. So then they have these for each of these. I still have all the little tins they came out with. If you're wondering, yes, I did dig through a crate in my basement before this episode and was like, what are you going to nominate? And these watches came to mind. And I was like, you know what? I wanted to nominate like one of the like crossover promotion things for one of the movies at some point. And what better way to go to start it off than the one that I have the complete set of? And plus, like, no better way to, like, let me make sure this one doesn't have a watch in it. Let me find one that does. I think it might. Okay, we're going to go with Attack of the Clones. So what, you're like, I'm going to impress my friend. Or you're going to go on a date. What better way than to pull up with this cool little Yoda watch? And they'll be like, oh, man, you like Yoda? I'm like, no. It's Count Dooku. And then boom, there you go. So that's my horrible pick.
Have the time I do.
The Jedi Archives. Jacob, have you thought of anything?
I do. I think we're going with it. I also think the McDonald's glasses that may or may not give you lead poisoning are a great pull for future.
Those are another one too.
Yeah. But I can send you a picture of this for your Twitter poll or whatever. My pick specifically it's from the Dark Droids #3 comic from, I think, last week now at this point. It's a R5 droid that has little like human arms sticking out the front of it. Like all the droids have been like kind of hybridized with human body parts. It's very weird. It's very creepy, but but it's just a little R5 droid with human arms sticking out the front of it, and it's just like a speech bubble. It's like, I am hungry, I need the meat, and it's a little pathetic little dude. Yeah, Dark Droids is kind of a wild trip right now. But I'll send it to you for the Twitter poll. It's silly, goofy.
Please do.
I don't want to read that.
Yeah, no, that's insane. Because that's one that I've been very curious, because I'm behind on all the main lines right now, so I haven't been able to read Dark Droids yet, because I kind of made the mistake of going into both Crimson Reign and War of the Bounty Hunters, just reading the main line and not reading the other stuff going around. So I didn't want to do that with Dark Droids, because I felt like I'd be confused, especially because there's a lot of stuff that I think they were building towards that I'm just not there yet. So, but it looks wild, and it's
pretty crazy.
It indirectly, I think, gave us D Squad back. So
it's right here.
I mean, there you go. There it is.
D Squad #1 with Whack 47 from the original episode. Spoilers:
Whack.
There so far has been no Meeber Gaskin. I am really praying he shows up at some point.
Well, why are you even making the series? Yeah, if Colonel Gascon's not there. When we can talk about TV again, Meeber Gascon is 100% going to be a future nomination. So perhaps the most wild edition of the archives yet. So we will be posting a Twitter poll right around the time the episode drops, where you can vote for myself, Don, or Jacob's choice. You have the crazy R5 droid that needs meat. You have the Jedi Survivor song that John, what's the name? I'm blanking. Spice Man, and then you have Burger King Star Wars watches from 2006.
You have given me an idea for my next nomination, Andrew. I'll say that.
Eventually, the only reason why I haven't gone with like the Taco Bell Phantom Menace stuff is because I was one when that movie came out, and I don't have like a super vivid connection to it. But that's definitely the one that like so many people think of when they think of like fast food tie-ins. It'll eventually get nominated. It's just like I wanted to go with the one that I have full connection to, because I still somehow 17 years later have at least all the tins still in some storage unit in my basement. But now let's get into the main course, which is the big reveals from New York Comic Con. We got quite a bit in terms of not only books, but comics as well. And a few reference books I think we're getting as well, which I'm very excited for, because I love me some art of books. I love me some visual dictionaries. And I'm just really excited to where publishing is going. I've loved that kind of ever since we've taken the break with movies, they've gone more all out with the books and have let them like do their own thing and tell their own stories, and not just be mainly tie-ins with what we're going to see in the movies that get people like, oh, we're going to see more of this, and then it doesn't happen. Resistance Reborn.
Yeah.
But then
remember when like Lost Stars was like, there was a whole theory about Lost Stars that like Thane and Sienna were Rey's parents, and that was like one of the main reasons I was like, oh, maybe I should.
I've never heard that theory. I mean, that's my favorite Star Wars book of all time. But
it's still a fantastic.
I love
book.
how,
but
it's still its biggest contribution, I think, to the greater Star Wars canon is, oh, that's where that Star Destroyer on Jakku is from. But like, I need Claudia, I'm begging you, at some point. At some point, give me Lost Stars or Two Stars or something.
So delusional for this panel, because I'm like, why is Claudia here? She hasn't written anything in so long. She wrote The Fallen Star back in 2022 and a single comic book, and her next thing is not coming out until spring of 2025. So I'm like, are we announcing Lost Stars? Two stars? Unfortunately, spoiler alert, that did not happen.
I was gonna say, I
am delusional.
Anything?
No.
Yeah, I need something. I love you, Claudia. Again, I haven't read all of her books, but each one I have read is one of my favorites, and she's amazing. And like I said, Lost Stars, so good. But again, we had the era of like, oh, Phasma's getting a novel, so surely she'll and then like I said, Resistance Reborn and all that stuff. So now, like with the High Republic, and not just that, but the comics are doing these yearly big arcs. We have further connections to like very unexplored or relatively unexplored stuff, like pre-Phantom Menace stuff, and more emphasis on the prequels now, which is awesome. And really filling the gaps with a lot of the stuff that we've been missing, and telling new stories, which it really reminds me of the old Legends days where we would have these trilogies and we would have all these concurrent stories going on. And now we're seeing a lot of them slowly making some transition into the visual Star Wars media, which is really cool. But I think the biggest highlight of this panel was, I mean, obviously the High Republic stuff, but the comic stuff really was, at least for me, the stuff that I saw the most people talking about. Obviously, I think, I mean, we're all big fans of Ethan Sachs here. So knowing that his next run is going to be a Jango Fett series, I think is awesome. I love Jango. He's always been a character that I'm like, he's got so much interesting stuff around him, and you're like, oh, because he's got more lines than Boba. But then when you go back and you watch episode 2, it's still like he's only still in the movie for like maybe 10 minutes. Like he's not in it super duper much, and we don't know too much about him still, because a lot of stuff we did know, like the Bounty Hunter game, not canon anymore. So like you can tell his story. And I did really love, I don't know if you ever read this, Jacob, or if you ever read this, Don, but back when they were doing the Age of Republic comics, and they had the one-off Jango with Boba, I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, because
it's so
that
good.
book specifically contradicts the Bounty Hunters game. That's because, like, previously I just kind of assumed, oh, well, you could always sort of retrofit it in, but I think it does sort of render it non-canon, which I was a little bit like, oh, because I did play that game a lot, and there were like a lot of aspects of it that I appreciated. Like I love the Uvu 4 Prison Break and stuff, and the Bando Goro were interesting villains. They were kind of scary, if anything, but yeah, I'm really excited for this. Like we all said, we all love Ethan Sachs. He's really good on Bounty Hunters. He has to juggle so many characters and bring, like, you know, focus on an aspect of the galaxy that we don't actually see all that much, because, you know, like that's adjacent to like the larger conflicts and stuff, and it's really interesting to get kind of a feel for that. And Baylor Balance, he's a really cool character. Like I know I believe he's from Legends. I think we're correct in saying that.
He was from the original Marvel run of Star Wars comics. And
it's like issue 14 of the 77 run. The funny thing is, people always like make jokes as like, oh, it's just like the Terminator. Valance is actually older than the Terminator. Like it came out several years before the first Terminator movie, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, he's been around, you know, I guess probably since 78, I would guess. So yeah, quite a lifespan.
The original Terminator came out in what, 84, 86? Like that's
something like that, probably.
Yeah. But I mean, we're gonna get more Jango. I'm assuming we're going to get more Zam Wessel as well, which is going to be really cool. I really want to see more stories with her, and getting to see him interact with Jango, specifically interact with a lot of the prequel era bounty hunters like Aurra Sing, who we haven't seen. We've seen Boba interact with them in the Clone Wars, but to see maybe Enbo, maybe Cad Bane, because I think I remember there being something in Book of Boba Fett about Jango and Cad Bane previously having some interactions. I might be making that up, but I'm really excited for this comic. But obviously, this is where the bittersweet part comes in for a lot of these Star Wars comic centric corners of Twitter are that Bounty Hunters is indeed coming to an end next year. And Jacob, I see you posting about this series a lot. So give me what's your reaction to this? And just, I guess, go in depth about why this series has meant so much to you, what you like about it, and what you hope to see from Ethan going forward with this new series.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was a bit of a shock hearing it get canceled. This is, you know, the first real, I think, like change up in the status quo for Star Wars comics since like 2020, as far as like what has been releasing. Like you got the miniseries, you got the events, but like for the longest time, we've been operating off of having 4 ongoing series, and that's been Star Wars, Darth Vader, Dr. Aphra, and Bounty Hunters. And this is the first one that is kind of coming to, or at least that we know so far, is coming to its end. I think we are getting slowly closer and closer to the end of this like post Empire Strikes Back era. But this is the first one to officially be ending at issue 42. It's definitely a series that's meant a lot to me. I say all the time that I did not like it at the start. It took me about, I would say, like into the second trade paperback to really start enjoying it. But like since then, I've had a great time with it. So basically, since War of the Bounty Hunters, I think the quality has just been going, through the roof from where it started. Just the characters. I know Don mentioned earlier. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of characters in this that he's been juggling so well. And I think just like kind of this, found family, this motley crew of characters we've had over the past, 20 plus issues right now, they mean a lot. And like, I feel very connected to just this cast that, all feel so well fleshed out.
Yeah.
And just feel like a little family, especially like the past, I don't know, probably like 10 issues or so. With everything Valance has gone through, Ethan will not let that man have a moment of peace. It will be, I will miss them quite a bit. It's kind of cool that we are getting Jango Fett, even though I think this is only going to be a mini series. So I don't know if it's going to be more than like 4 or 6 issues. So, but anyways, the past couple issues of Bounty Hunters actually had like Jango Fett flashbacks. So I think it's kind of cool that Ethan got to like show him off a little bit here. It's very minimal. Don't like get like super hyped, but like you get a little Jango Fett during kind of like the Clone Wars era. So he kind of got to show him off a little bit before taking the helm, coming in like, I think it's March or April of next year.
I'm starting to realize how frequently Star Wars authors will tease their next projects before we even know it. Like Kevin Scott and Charles Soule both did it with Dooku Jedi Lost and The Rise of Kylo Ren. There was the little High Republic tidbits in there before we were like, who is Avar
Star Wars
Chris?
comic?
Yeah, and now we're getting more of that, and Ethan being like, okay, I know I'm probably going to do this Django thing, because he even said at the panel, it's like, all right, well, what do you want to do next? And they asked him, and he said Django, and there you go. I think it is. I think you're right. I think it is only going to be a mini series, and I think that works better for it, because I feel like it. I don't know if Jango Fett's the kind of character where you could have. I mean, then again, people probably said that about Aphra, and that series has been going on in some way or another for the past, I think, 7 years now. So who knows? But I'm really excited for it. Again, love the character. I Bounty Hunters have always been an area where I think they're really cool, but aside from a select few, I've never been able to like fully engross myself in it. Like for a lot of Star Wars fans, especially older ones, that scene in Empire of, all the bounty hunters there, like that's like, oh, I love these characters. For me, it was just, I mean, those are just guys, like, because I didn't grow up in that era. So I did pick up the first 2 volumes of Bounty Hunters once the announcement was made that it's going to be ending, just so I can, because I did like what I read in War of the Bounty Hunters. I didn't like the 4LLM and Zuckuss one-shot. I'm going to be completely honest. I thought it was really bad. But I liked the rest of the stuff that I saw. I thought it was really cool. And Valance, from what I know as a character, I like him a lot. I know our friends were literally sobbing once this news broke that the series would be ending. So it's bittersweet, because I know that Ethan's going to knock this Django series out of the park, but also this series means so much to so many people. And it's sad when you have, like you said, a staple of these publishing initiatives for the last 3-4 years just come to an end like this. And it does seem like we're going to be slowly entering a new era with the comics. And that, I think, is going to be one of the last questions I ask, because I have my guess and my want of what I would like them to do, but we will see. The other thing related to miniseries is we got the Mace Windu announcement. We had I think this is his second canon comic run, because he had the one a couple years back. I think that was also only a miniseries.
Yeah, it's like 4 or 5 issues. Is like I think it's called Mace Windu Jedi of the Republic. I think was
Yeah,
what
I
it's
have
called.
the trade
Yeah, I
paperback.
think you're
I
right.
just
Yeah,
haven't read it, and I'm
very
I'm
cool
excited for the
cover image.
It is really cool, and I believe this is pre episode 1. I could be wrong.
It is because
or
it's
is it
tying in
in
with it.
between? Is it
It's just
tying with the
before
Living
episode
Force?
1, I think. I don't know if it's tying in with the Living Force, which I'm also excited to talk about. But
Oh, yes.
it is releasing next year to coincide because next year is the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace, and this is I imagine it's going to
crazy
take
to
place
even
before
think about.
Phantom. My mind is like just on the floor at that, but I'm excited for that because I think if anything, Mace Windu and Jango Fett are 2 characters that honestly kind of would benefit from getting more stories because obviously, Mace Windu, there's a bunch of the Star Wars fandom that have recently decided that they don't like Mace Windu for like understandable reasons.
We've
and
had
he
people
gets,
on the show that hate
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is he gets framed often as like everything that's wrong with the Jedi Order, which isn't particularly fair to Mace. It wasn't like down to any particular individuals. It was just the encroachment of war really that just affected all of the whole order. And I just think that it'd be really interesting to actually explore Mace more as a character and like actually like explore his more like from a more personal side, like what his feelings are about stuff and perhaps why he's a more hardened character and so set in following the rules of the Jedi as opposed to like Jedi like Dooku, which start to question like why they don't get involved in politics or like the more like dirtier matters of other worlds and stuff like that. It's intriguing.
I would love if this one was more, like you said, personal and more like centric on what he's thinking and what he's going through, kind of like the Obi-Wan miniseries was that Christopher Cantwell did last year. Because
Which was
I feel like
fantastic, by the way.
Mace, I love that series, but it's something like Mace to me is a character where how he's viewed and how he's written varies from whoever's writing him. Like if it's a Mace centric story, he's always like, oh, he's one of the best Jedi out there. He's so cool. He's like, yeah, there's flaws with the Jedi, but like, look at this badass guy who would live and die for the Republic. And then you have other people like, say, in Brotherhood, where every Mace Windu scene is like, oh, fuck Mace Windu. Like, oh, he treats Anakin like shit.
Just like, I don't
you
like
can tell
you.
they hate each other. So it's just, he's one of those ones where it's like, I want to see, again, we've known the character for 24 years, and we've gotten a lot
Maybe
of
it's
Mace
going to be the
stories,
origin
but
of how he gets his purple lightsaber.
that would be
Because like
sick.
he did have the blue one, and like it could like be adjacent to Phantom Menace and explain how he gets it. Which because like I would personally be invested in that, although I would hope for maybe a more like personal story rather than just the lore specific detail of how he got the saber. But yeah, before I forget, fun fact, since we're talking about Django and Mace Windu, my younger brother hated Mace for years because he killed Jango Fett, and it was only until like we watched Attack of the Clones many years later, and I pointed out that Django could have ended Mace Windu if he just shot him when Mace Windu was disarmed by the Reek, but he doesn't do that. He dives for the purple lightsaber. It's like he had one job to kill the Jedi in front of him, and
I didn't even make the
purple
connection.
lightsaber, give me.
I didn't even make the connection that they announced a Mace and a Django miniseries like concurrently until like
I don't think I did
before we
either.
started recording. I was like, oh, okay,
They should do like variant covers of like the two of them just like glaring at each other. Like you can put them together and it's like Mace and Django just like giving each other the evils. Like that would be
Jacob,
funny.
besides the High Republic stuff, am I missing anything for the? I know like we're getting some hyperspace stuff.
Thrawn
with Qui-Gon.
Alliances.
Oh yeah,
Is
Thrawn
getting
Alliances.
an adaptation written by Jodie Hauser and Timothy Zahn. I think I'm excited to see this. Thrawn Alliances, although I do enjoy it, is not my favorite of the canon Thrawn novels. The thing I am most excited for with this one is the fact that after 6 years, or probably 7 years by the time this comes out, we will see what a Grisk looks like, and that is hilarious to me.
It's been this long.
Holy shit!
Yeah. They've been
I
a
haven't finished
key
Thrawn Alliances, but
yeah, they've been a key focus of like 5 Thrawn books now, and we don't know what they look like. I think they're supposed to be gray. That's about all I know, if I'm being honest. So that'll be cool.
Mm-hmm. And
it's
then
really
I think
interesting that they're bringing it out like now after a certain series. I almost slipped then. Yeah,
Oh,
but it's
I
interesting
think
that they're bringing
it's-
out now. I think it's quite purposeful.
I think it's
to
because
pull
of the
people in
Anakin,
on what the Grisk
the
is.
Anakin
Yes,
crossover
that
is my
too.
guess.
It's so bizarre that they waited though, because like okay, Darth Vader, regardless of how good it is, or like whatever like the run is that has Darth Vader in it, doesn't matter how good it is, what's going on, it will always be like the number one selling Star Wars comic every single time. It always like tops the charts, and it's like you have a series where you could, for like 5 or 6 issues, however long you want to do it, you can put Thrawn and Darth Vader on every single cover, and it's going to sell gangbusters just from like the built-in audience that like really cares about these characters. Doesn't matter. It can be just an okay adaptation, and people will buy a shit ton of copies. So it's just so bizarre that they waited this long to actually make it happen.
I
Indeed.
It is shocking that they didn't, because I feel like the Thrawn comic from the first book came out like a year or so after the book.
Yeah, it was
And
like in
then I feel
2016 or
I
2017.
feel like Alliances has been out for like 5-6 years at this point. Like it's been quite a bit since it came out, and I mean now we're gonna get it, and it is like people are really into Anakin right now. Thrawn is obviously a very hot character right now in the fandom. So boom, if we're not going to be getting any Thrawn novels for a little bit because of what's going on in live action, there you go, and it's going to give hype to Dave Filoni's movie coming out once they get that further into production, and we get more hyped about that.
More
but it is
bonus.
such a weird thing that now we'll probably get treason in like 2026, and then we'll get to Ascendancy at some point.
Yeah, it's like I keep making jokes like I can't wait to read the Lesser Evil adaptation when I'm 50. It'd be so cool.
Yeah. It's like how they release Black Series lines for shows that aren't this most recent one. It's like, I can't wait to get my a Bad Batch Black Series in 2025. Like it's just I hate it so much. But in terms of High Republic, how about you just go ahead and just take the rails of the big stuff that we can look forward to, and like what you're the most hyped for.
Yeah, so I mean we have started phase 3. We had Shadows of Starlight #1 come out a couple weeks ago now. That was, I don't know if you all have read, well, I guess you're a little bit behind, but that was a fantastic
I went
issue.
to the last time because the comic book store near me was having a closing sale, so I got a statue there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up Shadows of Starlight. They didn't have it. They were sold. So
yeah. It was a great issue. Really did not like, they're kind of like, just teasing the start of phase 3. Did not see what was coming, even though Tales of Light and Life, which I've also read, kind of takes place at the same point in time. And I'm like, oh, I did not expect this comic would go that way. Anyways, very exciting. The first, this is stupid, ridiculous, like in the weeds. Only a few people care about this. The Insider short stories start in a couple days for phase 3, so they'll be fun.
Cool.
But yeah, and then I mean we got the first issue of the Marvel mainline starting, I think, in 2 weeks now. So as well as more Shadows of Starlight, we got the High Republic Adventures coming in December. So it's a lot on the comics front that'll be very exciting. And then of course we are like, I think, a week and a half away from Eye of Darkness. So there is a lot happening coming up that we already knew about. But as far as reveals, the first one was also, they announced this a very long time ago, but it was like a year plus release window for it, and that's the High Republic, the lightsaber collection from Inside Editions. They did a regular, a regular lightsaber collection. It's like a nice like coffee table book. It's very long, a nice format for a lightsaber.
Lovely, yeah. I have that. It's awesome.
Yeah, a couple of years ago. So now they're bringing this one out. It has Avar Kriss and Porter Angle's lightsabers on the cover. Looks great. It'll be awesome. And then non-books and comics, we are getting our first like legitimate High Republic merch item, which is
we're getting
the Stellan Gios Disney Parks
version of this
lightsaber.
It's so cool.
Is gonna be like $300 and does not come with a blade, but it looks sick.
Yeah, I know, it looks so cool. Like I was like, because when I read Rising Storm and Light of the Jedi, I was like, okay, Stellan is one of my new favorite characters. So I got that on Etsy. But like to get the legit real thing, if I ever have the money where I'm like, all right, well, I know what I'm buying, and have to spend another 100 on a blade. There we go. But I think we're also getting a character encyclopedia, which is really cool that we're at the point in the High Republic where we can have one of those. Because you're like, oh yeah, it's been going on now for beginning of next year will be 3 years, and it's been announced for 4, and it doesn't feel like that. But also, it's like it feels like it's been around for so long because there's been so many stories, and we haven't really had something like this since the Legends days, where there is so much coming out at once, and it's so cool to see. And again, yes, I am a phase behind, but I'm going to catch up, and I'm very excited for phase 3. There's a chance that once I finish up where I'm at, I might just jump right into it and get back to phase 2 eventually, but maybe that's not.
I'm going to give. Okay, so I'll give you a recommendation. Where are you right now with your reading?
Fallen Star.
Okay, my recommendation is to, based on what we've read what I've read so far.
I got to interrupt real quick because Fallen Star, but I've read all of the phase 1 comics, and I read the first 3 or 4 issues of the phase 2 main run, and then I fell off.
Gotcha. Okay, my recommendation for phase 2, I really enjoy it. I know not everyone does. My recommendation, if you're just like, I want to get into what's coming out now, I want to kind of like catch up, and I know that this is a lot of content, my recommendation is actually just read the 2 YA novels. I think it is the most relevant for what is happening with phase 3 so far from a plot standpoint. They are also, in my opinion, the best 2 books. So I think that in Battle of Jeddah is like your big kind of event in the middle, but Path of Vengeance overlaps with the battle so much, and you get the kind of important bits that you probably need from those 2 books. So I think that's my personal recommendation. Read as much as you want, read as much as you enjoy. But if you're like, I'm kind of falling behind, I want to get to like Eye of the Darkness that's coming out in a couple weeks, I would read Path of Deceit and Path of Vengeance. I think they're 2 great books, and they really set you up for so far what's been important in the last phase.
All right, sweet. I will definitely take that.
Path of Deceit is so good.
Recommendation.
It takes such a turn.
Yes. And then Path of Vengeance takes crazier turns.
Oh my god.
So out of every High Republic project we've had so far, what would you say has been your personal favorite? Because I have mine, but
that's tough.
Yeah. My
like crazy, ridiculous answer is the manga from phase 2 is insanely good. Edge of Balance Precedent. Really, really good.
I have that. I need to read it.
I have
like good things.
Phase 1.
I definitely would wait to read Path of Vengeance first before you do it, but very good. Also, the thing I just ran out of my room to get is Chronicles of the Jedi. I don't know if this is the first, well, I guess second reference book. We also got the art book. This is one of the best, I think, reference guides that has been written in Star Wars in a long time. It is, I don't know, probably a couple hundred pages, and it's written as an in-universe history book. So it's like there's a fictional Jedi archivist that is like, I'm writing a textbook on the era of the High Republic, and just kind of tells the story of everything from the perspective of a Jedi. And the crazy, like, it's all really well written. So the guy writes it after the Fallen Star ends, kind of in the timeline. So he's telling some phase 1 stuff. He's telling some phase 2 stuff, but obviously he doesn't know everything because he's a Jedi. He doesn't know what's going behind the scenes with the Nihil the whole time, all this stuff. But it's really well written. And the crazy thing is every single piece of art in here is original, and it's all done by the same artist. So it really feels like a contiguous piece of work. So like, you have beautiful pages like this with all the Jedi from, this is gorgeous. Mostly phase 2 Jedi. You have like these little leaflets that have Arbesh, but they're nice, and they put the English translation on the back. But yeah, like just absolute. Oh, here's your boy Stellan with his lightsaber from Rising Storm.
Oh, that's
that scene
so
on Ballo.
cool.
This is like it's a night, and also like this is the regular version of the book. I have a collector's edition right there that's very expensive, or not very expensive, but decently expensive. This is like $20-30, and it has like a faux leather cover with like all this kind of like accents on it. It's a gorgeous book for
That's
what it
insane.
is. And I also my recommendation is for people that are hopping into phase 3 that have caught up, like been keeping up with things and have, it's been a while since you've read phase 1. If you don't want to do a full reread, which is a ton of time, just read this. It kind of like refreshes you on what happened, 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So,
Rising Storm is my
awesome.
answer, by the way, for my favorite.
Great
like,
answer.
Light of the
I'm gonna have to
Jedi
go
was like
Fallen
such
Star.
a crazy experience reading it the first time. Rising Storm was something where even though I knew the ending ahead of time, the last like 20-30 pages were like I was shook to my core the entire time, even though I knew exactly what was going to happen. And then a close second would probably be the Trail of Shadows miniseries. I adore that.
It's a
That
great
is
one.
such a good run.
So good.
But yeah, we got a lot to look forward to for High Republic. Eye of Darkness is coming out. We also got our first look at Jedi Master now, Keeve Trennis, which is crazy to think about. Kind of getting the parallel from the first cover of the original High Republic comic run. And I was seeing it again with Keeve, all grown up. It's crazy. And if Connor were here, he would be talking about how much he loves the character.
There's two things for Connor to be really hyped about here, for sure.
Jedi Fallen Order and Keeve Trennis.
And the Living Force.
Oh yeah, no,
yeah.
that was what I was just about to bring up. Is Living Force, which is we knew it was announced, I believe, at Celebration, so we've known about it for a bit.
Has it been that long? Wow.
Maybe it was San Diego Comic-Con, actually.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it,
I think it might have been San Diego. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was announced a while back, but it's still the thing I'm the most hyped for. Pre-Phantom Menace, getting to focus on all these different prequel Jedi, it feels so Legends to me, and I'm hyped for it, man. John Jackson Miller returning to writing Star Wars books. It's just I can't wait. I think it's going to be awesome, and I've loved just about every canon book or story that's taken place in this time period that they've had so far. So I'm just so hyped for it. And again, especially since around maybe last year, 2 years ago, the big thing in the community has been prequel resurgence. So it makes sense. I cannot wait for the book. It's going to be a day one read for me. I've already pre-ordered it. Like, I'm so hyped for this book. Don, I think we're on the same page with this.
We absolutely are. Like, it has, for starters, it has a gorgeous like cover art that, as you said, Andrew, it's like really evocative of Legends, but also like the posters for the original Star Wars film, especially the prequels. I just love the energy of it, and I also think it's really cool that it's like a road trip, and that each like there's going to be a perspective for each of the Jedi Council. So characters like Depa Billaba or Yariel Poof or Opa Rancisis, they're getting a spotlight in a way that they might not have before. And it's especially cool now that Opa Rancisis and Yariel Poof are shown to be in the High Republic era. So there's kind of like I imagine we might even see some like kind of follow through from there, which is really cool. Yeah, although John Jackson Miller hasn't written for that. But I'm also with you with that, with him coming back to write for more Star Wars. It's awesome. I've never read Kenobi. I have it. It's on my perennial I have to read list. But I've read a bit of New Dawn before I kind of dropped off to like read High Republic stuff, and I remember really liking it. And I felt it was the first canon novel, so it's just kind of cool to see him sort of return and like get to helm such a epic feeling book. Really, yeah.
Oh, it was only announced back in September. We way overshot this thing. I don't remember when they announced it, but like it was. I'm again very excited. And again, getting to once we're starting to see more and more of the transition from the High Republic era to the Fall of the Republic era, and just get to really see what that's like more and more. I'm assuming we're going to get more of that in Phase 3 and in the upcoming series that's going to be airing next year. But again, very hyped. Any opportunity I will take for more stories with these characters, I will take them. I'm so ready. I think it's going to be awesome, and I think it's going to be one of the bigger books of the coming year. But I feel like aside from that and High Republic, we don't know much of what's coming in 2024 on the novel side. It's mainly just the comics, as far as I can remember.
You're right. I mean, that's it. I mean, there's like some of the, it's High Republic, this, and then like, just more of like Essential Legends collection, which is cool, but these books have also been out for, at least 20 years or whatever. So
yeah.
I mean, December is usually kind of a dead period for publishing, like not even just Star Wars, just in general. So maybe, as we get into January, we might start to get more announcements, but yeah, we're kind of got an open slate for a lot of next year at this point.
Yeah, we'll probably hear more soon, because I feel like this year has also kind of been like, we haven't had as many books as we had in past years. Like we had Rise of the Red Blade, not counting High Republic stuff, we had Rise of the Red Blade, we had Battle Scars, and we just had Crimson Climb. But I feel like, unless I'm missing an obvious one, that's all we've had this year in terms of like outside of the High Republic stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming we'll find out more, but there's a lot to look forward to right now. So I have two questions for both of you. The first is, out of what we know is coming in both the book and the comic realm, what is your project that you're looking forward to the most? And the second is
The Living Force.
It's Living Force for me as well. Do you are you keeping with the pack, or are you got a different answer for us?
I'm very excited for The Living Force. I'm really excited for, like, especially because I always am very happy for prequel stories that are not set during the Clone Wars, because it feels like they're like, we got this 20 whatever, however, long period you want to define, and we're gonna stick all of them in this 3-year period. So I'm very hyped to have something that takes place outside of that. As much as I love the Clone Wars, obviously.
Yeah.
I think the thing I'm most excited for coming up is probably for me is, at this point, Eye of Darkness. Like, I'm really hyped for the comics and all that stuff, and also the Living Force. But just to have like the first big chunk of Phase 3 for me will be very exciting. It's been a year and a half.
Seen when
I'm
Fallen Star
itching for
dropped,
Mark and Rose to get his comeuppance.
January of 22 that came out.
I think that's right. Almost, close to 2 years.
Close to 2 years, and we'll have. I believe Phase 3 is lasting until 2025.
Spring 25. Yeah.
So it's going to be long. So I'm very excited, and I can't wait. My second question, though, is related to something that you brought up earlier, Jacob, kind of indirectly, and that's we, for the last, I think since 2020 now, have been with the mainline comics have been in the Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi era.
Yes.
So my question is, now that we think that we're getting the point, because it's only technically a year in the timeline in between movies, we're getting to the point where that's probably going to be ending sooner rather than later. So what do you think the next thing they're going to do with the mainline is? Like, what time period, and what would you like it to be? My
take is, because I think a lot of people just like, it makes sense that they feel this way. They're like, we got post A New Hope, we got post Empire Strikes Back, then we'll get post Return of the Jedi. I can understand why that is like the natural thought. I think they are maybe gearing up, or this is completely speculation. Obviously, I don't know anything. I feel like they are maybe going to a prequel run of comics next. I think it makes a lot of sense. We're getting all the miniseries, the Django, the Mace Windu miniseries we talked about earlier. Dark Horse is doing their like new hyperspace stories, graphic novels, starting with an Obi-Wan and a Qui-Gon one next year. I think it makes a lot of sense. We are again getting on big anniversaries. a lot of hype there. I think there's, I just think there's a lot of desire and for these sorts of stories, especially since, one of the most formative, famous Star Wars comics was the, 98/Republic run that ran from, pre Phantom Menace all the way up through Order 66. So I think that comic, depending on how you want to count it, it's a very complicated thing. Ran at least 83 issues. But I think there's a lot of hype for that. I would want to see something like that, but if I want to make this more interesting answer and have two different answers for both what I think and what I want to happen, I would love to see some, I don't know, maybe like 5 to 10 years prior to the sequel trilogy comics. Something
I would love it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get anything around
Oh,
that.
I absolutely not.
Especially not now. I think the closest we'll see it is around the time New Jedi Order releases, if at all.
Yeah,
probably, yeah.
Especially because it's such a... With the one of the movies coming out soon, it's like they're probably going to be real tight-lipped on what you can and can't tell in that era. Which is why I don't think we're going to see anything close to the Mandoverse for the mainline comic.
I agree.
So that's why I think maybe post Return of the Jedi is
sense.
out. So for me, even though I'm right with you, I would love some around the time of the sequel trilogy era stuff. I think we're on the same page. I think with what they've announced, with the Jango Fett, with the Mace Windu stuff, just with everything we're getting, I think after this run ends, we're going to go for a prequel story. We're going to go back in time. My preference...
I would love that.
Yeah.
I hadn't even considered.
It's also my choice, but my time period for me would be between episode 1 and episode 2.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that at this point is the least touched on timeline in all of Star Wars.
It's like a 10-year period, and I think there are literally 2 stories that take place between there so far. It's the Queen's Shadow, I think, is in that time period, and the Obi-Wan Anakin miniseries, and that is, as far as I'm aware, that's it.
And I like that
and
series.
It's very
fine.
minimal in terms
Queen's
of
Shadow is
how it
fine,
advances.
But I would love, again, just seeing that era of Anakin and Obi-Wan together. I would love getting to see the formation of the Separatist army, getting to see Dooku's further falls to the dark side would be really cool. Getting to see just what the Republic is like during this time period. Because again, it's a 10-year gap, and we get, like Jacob said, 2 stories. That's it. And yes, I think pre-Phantom Menace would also be really cool, because like a year or 2 beforehand. Again, has only been touched on a couple times, I think on purpose. But if we're going to go further into the prequels, again, I would love Clone Wars stories, but we've gotten so many at this point that
we have,
it would be refreshing to get like preteen Anakin Skywalker. We've had one story ever in canon. Give
Twice
us
the
more
moodiness.
That would be my pick. Something I guess way out like off the wall would be just something completely different in something we haven't seen, but that's kind of High Republic. So I feel like they wouldn't have 2 ongoing story initiatives where it's something completely new.
It's filling the niche, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And I would
suppose,
love
like to add on to what you're saying. That's an amazing idea. I hadn't even thought of that, Jacob, when you proposed it. That's a great idea in terms of the comics, because I don't think they want to tread too much on the other shows, which we can't discuss. AMPTP, pay your actors. Come on,
please.
But anyway, yes, please. That would be nice. But I think if I could add anything to the discussion, I think one thing that would be kind of cool is to adopt a Clone Wars style framing for a comic like that. So like an arc of it follows Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then maybe you follow Padme and some political intrigue, or like Palpatine potentially, and maybe some like other Jedi characters, or like just non-specific prequel characters, or just new characters, because maybe use the first arc to set up an original character, kind of like how the Darth Vader comics set up Dr. Aphra, and then she got her own comic. And then before long, you've got like all these other players, so you don't have to constrict yourself to this like one group of Jedi characters who are probably only going to see so much of the galaxy. Because like Jacob said, it's a 10-year gap, and we know so little about like the machinations of things beyond just like the Cypher DS stuff. So it's just I'm really intrigued. I hope that's maybe what they're thinking of doing with the comics side.
Yeah, and what be so great was if we bring the same energy that we brought to Star Wars comics the past 8 years now, holy cow. With, if we have 3 or 4 like dedicated runs in this time period, you could you could have a Jedi series, you could have a Separatist series, you could have I don't know, like you could have so many different kind of feeling runs that would really flesh out this time period.
Yeah, the main Star Wars comic runs since 2015 have been, like you said, just all OT based storytelling. So I think there's only so much you can do, and yes, there is 30 years after Return of the Jedi that you can touch on, but we have seen sort of like the direct aftermath of Return of the Jedi in comics before with Shattered Empire. So, I mean, unless they want to do that again. But I would like, again, you could, I'm saying this, but I'm also like, if they just immediately go into Luke and Leia's training, I'd be like, all right, give me that.
Oh, yeah, I'd be hyped.
But, yeah.
Yes.
I think this would be a really cool choice. And since we know that they're not going to go near the sequel trilogy right now, that's probably what we're with. I don't want. We just said I also don't want a between episode 3 and 4 to be the new time period, because again, it's touched on a lot, and I would like to get away.
We've got
from
so much in that era,
the Empire, for a bit, and just do something cool and new. And I think Mace Windu, Jango, Living Force. I hope I'm on the right track there. And if it's between Phantom Menace and Attack of Clones, heck yeah, that's my choice there. But yeah, I think we've talked about a lot. There's a lot of cool books and comics coming out. So this is just a reminder: if you have not gotten into the Star Wars books or comics yet, first of all, why are you watching this episode? I feel like that's just kind of an hour on, what is this High Republic thing they're talking about? But read. There's so many great Star Wars books and Star Wars comics out there. Give it a shot. If you're like, oh, there's too many, I would say
there's one more book that we haven't mentioned.
Go ahead.
And that is the Star Wars dad jokes book that was announced at the panel. Kelly Knox.
Shout out Kelly Knox.
It's like, you love to see it, like reaching her like ultimate form with Star Wars dad jokes. It's like I genuinely want to read that. That was actually one of my most hyped reveals, because like she always delivers with those kind of jokes, Kelly Knox, and just giving her a whole book of that material is fantastic. I love it.
One last point I want to make before I actually go into what I was going to do first is I just think it's so cool that we're at this point where people in the community are like a part of the storytelling. Like people that we have had interactions with are writing Star Wars stuff. People we are friends with have been referenced in Star Wars stories recently. There's 2 in the last year, and probably more than I'm even thinking of. So it's so cool. And I think it's just also just a testament to how engaging the current group of authors we have are, because they're just all great interactions, and the few I've had interactions with have been great. And I have nothing but positive things to say about the wonderful people writing Star Wars novels and comics right now. And it's clear how much they love doing so. And it's just great knowing that the people that are writing the stories that we love this stuff as much as we do. And that's just all you can ask for in my mind. But again, if you want to really get into the world of Star Wars books or comics, but you don't know where to start, I would say probably pick up a standalone book first, see how you like it. I would recommend Lost Stars or Bloodline or Princess of Alderaan or literally anything Claudia Gray has ever done. Or say Brotherhood is another great one, especially if you're a Clone Wars kid.
Yes.
It's so fucking good. And then just go right on in or try the High Republic. There's just so much great stuff out there, and you'll eventually get to the point where you're either like me, or where you're either like Jacob, where you read literally everything, or you're like myself, where you have bookshelves full of books that you haven't gotten to reading yet, but you just keep buying more books before you get a chance to read the other ones.
That's my Legends shelf, so don't feel bad.
And you have about 5 years worth of a backlog. So yeah, there's that. Jacob, thank you for joining us this week on the show. It was great talking Star Wars publishing with you, and again, not having you get let down by me in a trivia format.
We both could have won in that sudden death match, or that sudden death round. So don't put it all on yourself.
All right. But where can the good people find you?
Yeah, so I am on TikTok and Twitter at Jacob Boushh, like the bounty hunter Boushh. And you can find me there talking about mostly Star Wars publishing. I also am on the Cosmic Force podcast from Youtini that does bi-weekly Star Wars comics conversations. So if you are really deep in the weeds with Star Wars comics and you like seeing silly things like R5 droids with arms sticking out the front of their panels, that is a great place for you to check out. So, but yeah, I'm super happy to be here and chat with you all about the wonderful world of Star Wars publishing.
Yeah, exactly. If you like what you heard
pleasure having
this
you
episode,
on, man.
Definitely go check out Jacob's stuff, because he does, at least on TikTok alone, so many deep dives and weekly updates on what he's been reading, what he's been collecting. He's a really great follow. Don, as for yourself.
So you can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead, where I usually have been tweeting a lot about like Star Wars stuff, but like I've scaled it back to publishing because of course, as we said before, there's a strike going on. Hopefully a deal is being reached soon, but yeah, until then, AMPTP, pay your actors. You've paid the writers, now square it with the actors. Come on. But you can also find me on TikTok and Instagram under the same handle at Donovan McComish. Oh, X, my handle is Donovan Mead. Those are the two platforms, Donovan McComish. I recently got an invite to Blue Sky via Arzu from Geeky Waffle, so thank you very much for that, Arzu. There I'm Donovan McComish at bsky.social.com. I think that's the at. I'm still working that out, but yeah. And I believe the website is like going through maintenance, but when it is back up, you can find me on swe.com or whatever name Austin goes with to relaunch it. But yeah, we write media, we write various articles about like Star Wars, whether it's like publishing or like the media side, video games. And we've also done our own like fan stories as well. Like I did one story that came out in 2022 called Star Wars Scars of War, that was all about like exploring like the PTSD of a clone trooper who survived Order 66 meeting a Jedi survivor of Order 66. So yeah, if you like Star Wars and pain, then give it a read. That's my tagline for that book all the time.
Pain. As for myself, you can find me all social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Starlight Andrew. I've referenced it a couple times now, but In a Galaxy Trivia Epic Confrontations, Jake and I are a team over there. We had our first match as Hearts of Kyber a couple months ago at this point. Great fun.
Sick name, by the way.
Yeah. I thought of it, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on. How about Hearts of Kyber? Yeah, and then, of course, because we're us, we come out to a Blondie song because we have to. I was like,
came out to a Blondie song because the first song we chose was
the first
taken.
Song we taken was yeah, exactly. I was like, Jacob,
you can't go wrong with Blondie.
Give me any heart-themed song. Like, we need something. But yeah, you can find our first match there. It was great fun. I'm not going to talk about the result. And then as for the podcast, you can find us on Twitter at For the Repub Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at For the Republic Pod, where you can find further updates on the podcast. And check back after you watch this episode and go to our Twitter for the Jedi Archive poll. You can vote on this week's nominations and see what is our third inductee. We'll be back soon for more exciting episodes. And until then, may the Force be with you always.